Hey mates, it's me Rizz, and welcome to another mini-series on the channel called Australia's Relationships. This is where I look at the history and relationship between Australia and another country, and by the end I give an analogy on the relationship. And since these videos are meant to be short, a lot of it is going to be in the broad strokes. So with that, let's start with one of Australia's closest allies, and the country with the highest audience base on this channel, the United States of America. Anyway, let's begin with the context. Right off the bat, both nations have very similar beginnings, established by the British Empire as penal colonies due to an overcrowded prison system in Britain. Then came the free settlers, states were formed, both had gold rushes and frontiers. Aside from the geography, the first big difference between the two was their way of gaining independence. Funny enough, when the British lost the 13 states of America, Australia was the replacement for Britain's still overcrowded prisons. Funny how that works. But since it was very far away, a lot of convicts were skilled labourers and farmers that were convicted of minor crimes, such as theft, murder, military offences, and prostitution. Today the USA is a constitutional republic while Australia is a constitutional monarch. Anyway, before 1901 they did know their countries existed but had no official diplomacy. The first interaction between the countries came in 1908 when the US Great White Fleet visited Sydney Harbour and other Australian ports. The Australian government used this visit to promote a need for a modern navy, which led to the Australian Royal Navy, which is why you see the blue flag and not the red flag on the posters, as the blue flag was usually used by the government. It's complicated, and if you're wondering, it did piss off the British Admiralty. So the next interaction came during the Great War. Yes, America fought alongside with Australia in the Great War. By 1980, many US soldiers were at the front and were trained ready by many veteran soldiers, many of whom were Australian soldiers, also giving the American soldiers the nickname Sammy. After fighting together at the Battle of Hamel and as well as many other battles in 1918, both sides had gained the respect of each other. After World War I, not much interaction happened. There was the Paris Peace Conference and the League of Nations. However, the US had a Woodrow Wilson problem. Someone more cynical than me has already covered him, but just to give you an idea, Wilson called the current Australian Prime Minister Billy Hughes at the time a pestiferous varmint. Well, he was called worse, so let's get to the official relationship with the diplomacy segment. So, official diplomacy started on the 8th of January 1940. The US recognized Australia's independence. Legations were sent in the following months until they were replaced by embassies in 1946. Also a weird coincidence, when the embassy took office, the US ambassador Robert Butler's term started on the 25th of September. Yes, the same day Halo 3 came out. And the Australian ambassador Norman J.O. McKean started his term on the 11th of September. Anyway, in 1951 an alliance between Australia, the US and New Zealand was signed through the ANZUS Treaty. In short, it's a security treaty between Australia, New Zealand and the United States of America. The reason for the treaty was from the Cold War, though Australia had wanted an alliance with the US since before World War II for more or less the same reason, and other stuff that is just a bit more complicated. Anyway, the treaty is still held to this day, and only once has this treaty been invoked, on the 14th of September 2001. Oh, let's go to the battle segment. So, in terms of battling each other, there is only the Battle of Brisbane, which I made a video about that right here. But in terms of fighting together, basically for the past 100 years or so, Australia fought alongside with the US in every major war the US has been in, and we have quite the list. Aside from World War I, we have both the campaigns in Europe and in the Pacific in World War II, the Cold War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, and currently the war on ISIS, or ISIL. There's also another current war, but that's an economic war. Both countries have had joint military exercises and collaboration. Australia has purchased much military equipment from the US, or I should say US companies, which brings us to the economic side. Okay, there's a bit of conflicting information, and ever since the 2000s, trade between the two has changed dramatically, more or less, so here's my best shot. In terms of economics, both countries have had a strong trading relationship since post-World War II. The US is Australia's third trading partner. Actually, the US has been in the top 5 in terms of exporting and importing goods and services to and from Australia, while Australia is the USA's 16th or 24th trading partner. Among many things, the highest exports from the US to Australia are machinery, vehicles, optical and medical instruments, electrical machinery, and aircraft. Adding to the agricultural side, because I already have the information, the US exports a lot of pork, dairy, fruit, and nuts. Now, Australia's highest exports to the US are beef, pharmaceuticals, machinery, and optical and medical instruments. On the agricultural side, they also export a lot of beef, most of it being red meat, beer, wine, nuts, essential oils, beetroot, and cane sugar. Also, I have to mention the Australia and the United States Free Trade Agreement in 2004, which is kind of a big thing in terms of economics, jobs, and collaboration. Also, the large investments between the countries. So today, Australia and America's relationship could be summed up as the best of pals, or then again, the relationship is kind of like a couple in their 50s or 60s. Both had similar beginnings with different cultures from one another, both went through the ups and downs together in both peace and war. They have been through so much together, it will take a nuke to separate the relationship for each other, and even then that's debatable. Personally, the more I keep looking into the individual interactions and political history, you'd think it was destined for these two countries to be the best of pals, or old lovers still fucking. The best wholesome quote between Australia and America's relationship from this guy says it best. I do think that there's a special connection between Australia and America. It's kind of unexplainable, it's just one of those things. It's all about God's timing. We're thankful to be part of it. Well, I hope I tried to explain it. I'm guessing because they keep fucking. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe, it brings a smile to my face. Are there any good stories between Australia and America I missed? Leave them in the comments down below. I got nothing else to say, but stay safe. Quoted by Anthony Rizz, Sydney, Australia.